Today we're making rustic woodland decor that you can use every day in your home. I'm Brandy, and this is Making It My Own DIYs. Welcome back. The first project is the bird on a log. We're going to need a big brush. You can even use a cleaning brush for this. I wanted something soft and some clear matte protective top coat spray. Here is the piece of wood that I found. Very pretty, got a lot of character. I wouldn't call it a stump, maybe a piece of root, who knows, but it's beautiful. It has been dried out in the sun over the summer and then brought indoors. Even when you vacuum, a lot of fallout will happen because this is a piece of dead wood, right? So it's going to fall apart a little bit. You want to be sure that you are scraping away and brushing away all of the pieces that do not want to stay on that wood. So any little pieces of wood or splintering that is falling off, go ahead and brush that away. And I'm not being very gentle here. I'm being quite aggressive because I want to get most of this off. Once it is clean, I'm going to take it outside and spray it to let it dry. I've got this little bird that was donated to me, to my channel. I have 3 or 4 of these little birds, in fact. Very cute little one. These are little pieces of moss, almost like just little clumps, I guess, of dried moss. And these are my moss scraps that I save after I do other projects. I know that I want to use fern in here because I want it to be something that grows pretty much all year round, so you could use it non-specific to any type of season. Any little scraps you have, little cones or seed pods. These are some succulents that I have. Some other little, I don't even know what these are, but they're pretty interesting. Okay, so this has been sprayed outside. Now, a little bit will still fall off, but it's not going to be near as much as it was. I'm going to just kind of break these pieces off to set them in here. If you don't have them in this form, in like a little mat or a little clump like this, you can just use your loose moss, and you can get reindeer moss and like several different colors of moss, including Spanish moss at Dollar Tree. So you can get that if you don't have, you know, natural supplies on hand. So what I do in these projects is look for little nooks and crannies that are already in the wood, and I take advantage of those spots because that's where dust and dirt would settle and the mushrooms would grow and the moss would grow, right? They're all going to grow out of the other life that is there. So I'm just going to tuck those in there, and we're going to have the fern growing out of those spots on the stump as well. Hot glue seems to be the easiest way to get these attached, and since the moss and the wood are porous, this works pretty well for me. Protect your fingers though. This is very thick. If you are using a loose type moss, be sure you're protecting your fingers. So I'm just going to tuck these in the little places that look good to my eye. You definitely need to make yours your own and go with whatever looks good to you. If you have a fireplace and you have some wood in your wood pile that looks kind of, you know, misshapen, it's got some character, you could certainly use something like that. Just be sure everything is dried out and vacuumed and all the little critters have had a chance to get out of it first. You don't want to use anything that's got moisture in it. So far, so good. I'm liking this. It's a very natural look, very woodsy, rustic look. Then I'm just going to add a little scrap. This is a piece that was cut off of another project that I did, and I'll just add that right there. Grab your scraps. You know, if you have moss and you're using different types of moss, do like me and just scrape it all off your table onto a little zip bag, and then you can use it again and again until it's gone. Even the little tiny pieces still have some purpose. All right, so where do I want to put these lovely succulents? I have 2 little pieces of this. If you only have 1 clump, cut it in half, right? It's on a wire, just cut it in half and you can use it to stretch that look all the way across your project. So I have another piece here, and this one I thought would be nice if we tucked it underneath the edge to appear as though it's growing from underneath. Now this causes a little bit of a challenge because we're fighting gravity, but when I get it in place where I know that I want it, I'll flip the project over in my hand, and then I'll add some more hot glue here. Then I'll take that dusty pieces of moss that I had down there and I'll just tuck it all around. It sets up like concrete almost, and it holds it in place. So now we're going to put this cute little bird somewhere down on here. I want to put it in a place where it looks like it might actually sit. So of course it's going to look for some protection, and I would think that it would be comfortable on a little bit of moss in amongst the ferns. I'm going to take some more little pieces of those that little clump of moss that I had, and I'm going to tuck that up under here. Now the moss happened to come from an Amazon overstock type sellout store, and I got a box of loose or reindeer moss, I guess, and then some of these clumps also in there. So that's where this comes from. But I know you can get it at Amazon. You can get it really pretty much at any craft store now because lots of people are enjoying the woodland decor. Protect your fingers. You can use popsicle sticks, anything you need to tuck that in there so that he looks like he's not floating on the air. He's actually sitting comfortably in that beautiful green moss. This one was easy to do, and I hope that you will give it a try. The next project will be a simple woodland pot. This came from the thrift store along with a square one. I'm going to use the circle for this because it looks like a stump. I'm going to use some recycled foam I've used in other projects. And then this greenery I got from Temu, but you can get your greenery anywhere. I'm actually going to use 5 or 6 of those picks. Some more of those little clumps of moss, and then these are some sticks that I took apart it was like a charger or something, or a placemat that I found at the thrift store, and I cut all the strings, and now I have all those little interesting pieces of thin stems. So now I'm just going to measure against the side of the pot to see how tall we want this to be, and I can trim these down about 3/4 of an inch up from the bottom. If you cut in the little dents in the pieces of wood, it's going to go through so much easier than if you try to cut it where it's not dented. I think that's why they put it there, to make it a little easier for us. So I'll start this pattern out as a triangle. So don't even really have to pay attention to the shape of the square foam underneath, because that's not going to matter. You see where I put my finger, and we're going to make this like a triangle shape. And I'm fluffing these picks out and pushing these down. I know that Dollar Tree carries a lot of picks, and I think right now Hobby Lobby is doing 40% off of spring. Maybe, don't quote me, but if they are, go and get you some greenery. Save your little money. That's what it's all about on this channel. So here are 2 more of those picks. I'm going to fluff those out, and we will add those in as well. Kind of want this to look like it's maybe a bush that's growing in here. Maybe we've gone to the nursery and picked out a beautiful little bush. I think this is some sort of evergreen, but I am not entirely sure. I just like the look of it. I like that it's almost two-toned, and it just has that life in it. You know, it just looks like it's real. So now that I have those in, I'm just going to take some more pieces of that moss and just tuck it in. If you don't have that, you can use Spanish moss. The main idea is to cover that foam underneath and to make this look like it is planted here. I'll add these little sticks in here and there. I do not know what type of wood this is. It's almost viney if you bend it, so I have to cut it. You can't just snap it off to kind of cut into it. And I do cut it in some different lengths so that I could put it also around the edges. I just like the woodiness and the wildness of this. But you can leave the sticks out if you don't want it. It just gives it a little personality, and it brings me joy for my home. I hope it brings you some joy too. The next is going to be 4 wild mushrooms. All right, I've got some foam clay. Love working with this. Here's the information in case you want to order some. It is from Amazon. I have a variety of brushes, and I will be using many more. I am going to be using light mocha and a little bit of a cream color on almost all of the stems. You can see how these look. These were donated to my channel. For me in my home, I don't like the top of it. It does not fit into the natural look that I want in my home, or the forestcore look that I'm going for in my room. So I decided, well, we could put a new cap on the mushrooms. So we'll just go right over the top of what's already there. And since there's so much texture on there, our foam should cling to this nicely. So I'm just going to kind of roll it out and pat it down. It's looking a little too ovalish here, so I want it to be a little more circular. If you have a silicone mat, I'll show you in a moment how you could do this on a silicone mat, but maybe you don't have one. So we're going to do the best we can with our hands. I'll show you how to do that. I'm going to go all the way down to the edge of the cap of this mushroom. And if you buy mushrooms somewhere else and you want to do it, it's the same type technique. I'm going to go all the way down to the edge of the cap, and the cap is just that rounded top of the mushroom. And I'm going to do that to each one of these. Now, they're going to differ just a little bit in the shape and the size. And then, of course, we're going to do different colors for each one, right? Of course we are. Now, I don't know the scientific names for these mushrooms, but you can look them up pretty easily, I believe. So I'm going to press this down. I rolled it into a ball and I'm pressing it down. And don't mind that this is not dirty. I have brown paint on my hands and it's transferring a little bit onto the white here, but no worries. And if you have some foam that's already colored, you could do that too, so you don't even have to paint them if you want to skip that step. So now I'm going to put this one on and push it down. And it is kind of stretchy, so you can kind of pull it and mold it in your hands. This is actually quite fun. Very, very fun. I enjoyed this. I'm going to push it down lightly with my fingers, and I'm just going to kind of pinch and pull. You can kind of see what I'm doing here. Now, I know that I want some type of a rim underneath the cap, so I'm just going to roll out a piece of this and then kind of break it into little pieces and just put it right along that edge. This is going to make a bit of a lip, and it's going to change the profile of the cap of that mushroom a little bit. I love my silicone mat. I have bought a 3-pack of these. I got mine from, I believe, Temu, but you can get silicone mats at Dollar Tree. They're smaller, about half the size, but you can get them if you want to use them to work with your clay. You can also use a spray bottle with some water to dampen your hands to kind of make it a little bit easier to slip your fingers around in this clay. All right, I'm going to press because I want most of that border to just kind of blend in, because you'll be able to see that when we paint it if you don't have a smooth transition, and I want a smooth transition. So you can see I'm pinching and going around so it's coming outward from the cap. You see the difference here? It's coming outward a little bit. Push it down just a tad, and it almost has like a little ruffled edge, and I like that. So some of these mushrooms may be a little more on the imaginary side than an actual mushroom, but you know, it's my house. I can do it however I want, and you can do it scientifically if you would like to. There's lots of information about mushrooms on Pinterest if you want to go over there and check that out. And if you look at my Pinterest, I also have a board there with mushrooms and stuff like that on it. I have all kinds of goodies over there on Pinterest. Okay, so I want to make this one a little bit taller and a little more slim at the top instead of as rounded as this one was. Now this one it does have like a little dome, but not quite tall enough for what I was looking for. So I've just put a little bit on the top, shaped it into a point. I'm going to take my round piece, open it up, just so that I don't squish my point back down, because that would be defeating my purpose. And then I am just going to start working to blend these together. Now you just keep working with it. If you need to add a little bit of water, you can add a little bit of water. You don't want it to be gummy, but it will help you smooth out some of those wrinkles if you need to add some when it starts to dry. Just a little spray, and you can see how easy I can just slide my hand over there to get a smoother surface. Now, when these dry, you can see a lot of lumps and bumps in here, which is fine, you know, but when this particular type of clay foam dries, it's going to be much more smooth, much more. Okay, so in this wood, I'm kind of pinching and pulling it down a little bit more than I did on the other one. A little bit more. If some tears off, just tuck it back under there and you can adjust it and you can move it around and work with it. Did you know there are mushrooms that actually glow in the dark? Yep. Are iridescent, and there are slimy mushrooms, and there are dry mushrooms, and there are mushrooms that smell terrible, absolutely stinky, awful, nasty. You stepped in something mystery on the ground. Ew. Yes. Okay, after 24 hours, check this out. Look how much smoother it is. It's like it puffed out a little bit, which is perfect for a mushroom. Now we have all these different shapes, and the difference between these two here is that I made one thicker than the other one. I put like a double layer on it. So now the fun part, I get to start painting these to really give them some personality. And of course for me, I'm gonna start off on the caps of all these mushrooms. If you wanna start on the stem and let it dry, you can, but you have to have some place to hold, right? So I'm gonna take the nutmeg brown and go all over this. This is gonna be a rather plain mushroom that you probably see pretty often, but I can't say that for sure though. I live in the South and I see lots of mushrooms just in our 5 acres. I do have a video, by the way, 2 videos of me walking around my yard looking at mushrooms. If you want to see those, leave me a comment and I'll get the link for you. But I'm just going to add on 1 layer and then I will let it dry before we put the next layer on. And I'm going to go around the edge of the cap to cover up where all of the clay is. And I'll just, add a little bit more where I need to, but I don't want to leave a bunch of stripes in here, although, like I said, it takes 2 coats to get it covered. I don't want to go in circles, though, because, I think we've had this talk before. I like the idea of going up and down with this, almost like if it was with a wood grain, I don't know. That probably doesn't make sense when it comes to a mushroom, but I know what I'm talking about. I just wish I could convey that with my voice. Okay, so I'm going to go all the way around with this second coat, and I'm going to cover up as much as that white underneath as I can, because after this is completely dry, I will be adding a little more texture to the top of this cap. And don't worry, it doesn't have to be real clean, really neat under here, because we're going to actually paint the bottom. I'm going to put my dryer on low, and you can see it go from this shiny wet paint to a more matte look. Don't get it too close. Any of your drying tools, you don't want to get it too close. I don't know if it would deform the shape or what would happen. Okay, so now I am going to take a little bit of the lighter color. Use whatever colors you like. And now that the cap is dry, I'm going to go around here and clean up that edge. And I'm going to try to go in all those little depressions, but you might not have that on your mushrooms. I know there are some mushrooms that look like they have like that bubbly, marbly looking finish, but if you put something new on yours and it's like a slick finish, then you won't have to do all the work that I had to do to cover up all that. So I'm going to go all over this until I get it covered. I'm not going to be very specific around the very bottom edge because we're going to also do something different there. We're going to go on to the mushroom that I'm going to make red. And we see this mushroom a lot in home decor. In fact, I've used this particular mushroom in a lot of my DIYs. This red one with the little dots on it, I love it. It's just cute. It's cute, right? And I am loving this flamingo red or flamenco, whichever. It is very pretty, deep red. And it is not too bluish. It's just very pretty. Okay, I'm going to go underneath here, do the stem just like we did before, and 2 layers of that red on the top. Going to the next mushroom. This one is going to be blue. That's right, there is a blue mushroom with kind of texture on the top, and I'm going to try to mimic that. Keeping in mind it's completely dry now. I'm going to use the darkest navy blue I have, and I am going to mix it with a little bit of black to get a very deep blue, almost black color. And I'm testing it here to see, and I do like that color. So I'm going to dip my brush in there and paint that entire thing that color. You can see where they're like little dents or bumps. All you have to do is add a little more paint down in there. It's hard to see that when you're actually using the clay and putting the stuff in, but once you start putting paint, you can see it. What a beautiful dark blue that is. I mean, it is deep, deep blue. I'm going to dry this one as well, make sure that it is completely dry, and go back over it with a second coat. Once that is dry, I'm going to go in with a little bit of a lighter color for the bottom, and I'm going to start laying down these little patterns. Now, if you look up blue mushrooms, it might even be under black mushrooms because the color is so deep. You can see that there's not a perfect circle on here, and I'm not trying to make a perfect circle. They're almost like leopard spots or It's kind of hard to explain. It looks more like a peely texture, but there are little dots all over the mushroom. Most of the dots concentrated toward the bottom 2/3 of the mushroom. So that's what I'm trying to duplicate here. And I really like this one. It's different, but there are so many different types of mushrooms and they all have a different personality. They're wonderful. Okay, so we're going to take the back of a brush and go back to that red that is dry. And I am going to dip that in and make the perfect little dots all over this beautiful mushroom. Perfect little dots. Now they're not perfectly spaced. I'm just not going to do that. And I'm pretty sure that nature does not do that either. We're going to say it doesn't anyway, so they'll be perfect to me. How about that? Perfect to me and perfect to you when you make yours. I'm just going to put these dots here and there. I'm trying to leave them spaced out a little bit and look all around the edges, pick it up and see where it could use a little more. And then it can be set aside to dry. All right, now this one I started off with pink. Hated it, absolutely hated it. There are some pink mushrooms, but I couldn't stand this pink. I wanted to go darker, so I do actually change this to a shiny purple. It's almost like a grape purple, and then I mix a little of that same purple with black to do the bottom, which you actually see what the bottom is going to look like. That pink is going to be gone. All right, now these have dried. This is the blue mushroom. This is the red mushroom. You can see the bottom is not finished. Here is the purple one. I like it much better now, but don't worry, it's not going to be shiny. I'm going to mattify it somewhat. And then this one, this brown one. All right, now we get to work on the bottoms. So I'm going to use a little bit of ivy green and a little nutmeg brown. I'm going to put those side by side on a piece of paper. And I'm going to get a small chippy brush, dip into both of them. So it's going to be a little bit of green and a little bit of brown. I'm going to dot some of that off, and then I'm going to go around the edges, because when a mushroom is in the ground, it pushes up out of the ground, and there is always a little bit of dirt and stuff on the bottom of the mushroom. So it could be dirt and moss. I think this just gives it a very nice look. And you can blend it if you want to, but I didn't want to have all of my colors looking exactly the same. So in some of the spots it looks a little browner, and some of the spots it looks a little greener. And I'll just do that until I get it where I like it. And I'm only going up about half an inch to an inch, something like that. You know, some of it's a little higher, some it's a little lower. I'll blend some in there a little bit more. But basically the stems are very clean looking, except for the bottom where they come out, right? I'm just going to drag some of that down a little bit. Okay, we'll do the same thing over here. Now this one is not as obvious. I probably could have put a little lighter color in here to make it look a little more sandy, because it looks just like a muddy green at this point on that purple. All right, once they are completely dry, I'm going to go back to this one. I'm going to mix a little of that nutmeg brown with a little bit of coffee latte to put around the rim, because this particular mushroom I'm thinking about has got kind of a slightly lighter color around bottom of the cap, or the bottom, kind of like the underneath, but coming out on the, oh, you'll see in a minute. You see what I'm doing? I can't talk today. I can't. So I'm just kind of dotting this on with, this is actually like a rough brush. It's actually probably for stenciling, but it's a little too round for me for a stencil. I like a flat brush. So I like to use it in projects like this. And I'm going to use it to go all the way around the edge. And yes, right now it does look a little bold and silly looking, but I'm going to take another brush that is dry and I'm going to blend that out just a little bit. So here's another dry, clean brush. And right over the top of that, I'm going to drag that. I've got it at a slant, so I'm not removing the bottom. And I'm dragging it up into the brown slightly. See that? And that gives it more of the look that I like. Much better. I like that. It's my favorite mushroom, I think. Now, we're going to use some matte sealer on this one to bring it down to a more matte look. And we're going to use a satin Mod Podge on these other mushrooms to give them a bit of a shinier look. Now, this is not gloss, this is satin, so it's not a lot, but it's enough to say, hey, I'm a new mushroom and I just came out of the ground. How are you? Glad to meet you. I'm going to do that one coat on each one of these. It's going to go over the cap, the underneath side, and the dirt side, just to seal everything in. Don't you love the texture of these? I'm so glad that I could take something that I already had and make something new to go in my bedroom. Okay, and then after I put that on, always I'm going to end with my strokes up and down. The next is going to be a Woodland pedestal candle. So I have some garland here. It is very thick garland. It didn't cost very much. I have a candle that I DIY'd quite a while back. I have a candle riser or a little pedestal here. Kind of a wood look. And this I found at the thrift store. And since I pay by the pound, it costs hardly anything. And it looks like it was originally $19.99. Take your tags off. No mini purlin. Now see, this is entirely too thick. You won't be able to see the texture that's underneath there. So I'm just going to take my little cutters and I'm going to cut off several sections. I tried to pull and the leaves were coming off. Leaves. So I decided to cut them. No biggie. No biggie at all. I'm going to cut that little funny piece off there. You can use those to your advantage when you're putting them between pieces, but totally up to you. Now, what if you don't have this particular candle holder? Well, that's okay. Use something else. You can even do this on a glass. If you have a glass candle holder, you could certainly do that. This is just a beautiful woody frame that I thought would be really great as a woodland piece. It is very rustic, and it's certainly something that can be used all year round in your home. So I'm going to sort of make these look like a vine twisting around and through this beautiful wood. So I'm just going to add a little bit of hot glue and tap the leaves down. Sometimes I'll use my protected finger, sometimes I will not, because that's how I like to roll on my channel. But you always protect yourself. I want you protected. Use the right fingers. Add a little bit more here and there. I just like to lay it down first and see. And I do move my pieces around. There are some short pieces of greenery and there are some longer pieces of greenery. And I'm just kind of, looking to see which one I like best before I actually glue it into place. And then this I can just tuck right around the back. And then tack it right in the front, all the way to the bottom. And I'm not concerned if any of the leaves happen to fall off, or any of the leaves are flyaways, or if they hang down below the bottom, because we are going to put the entire thing on that pedestal. So it'll just kind of look like it's growing that way and just kind of hanging off, like natural greenery would, or like a natural vine would. This is actually, I think this is called a willow garland. I think that's what it's called. Anyway, mine came from Temu, but you can use any greenery you like. I just saved a lot of money by buying the garland and cutting it apart. And there's a good money saving tip for you. When you can find the garlands at a cheaper price, just cut them off yourself and you've got a ton of greenery to use in any way that you like. So now I'm starting the next little section. I'm moving outward from the bottom. Then if you want to go a little more upward again, so you have several pieces that are going upwards, you can just cover the bottom. If you just wanted to cover the top, or you don't have a lot of greenery, you could just cover the top. You can make one twist all the way around it. However you like it, that's what you should do. I always encourage you to make it your own and do it on a budget. Now, not everything you see me make is going to be from Dollar Tree, obviously. It's not going to be a $3 budget, but, I like to show you things that you would actually enjoy in your home, that actually look high-end. And sometimes it's going to cost more than $3. Every now and then you might get away with something that's less, but, you're going to get what you pay for, right? Unless you thrift. You know what I mean. Okay, so we're going to continue around. I'm not going to go all the way to the top with some of these branches. Sometimes I will, sometimes I don't. until I get it exactly how I like it. Now you can tack all the little flyaways down if you want to, but I like that it's kind of wild looking, and it's going to make some interesting shadows too in a dimly lit room. Alright, so now to put it on that pedestal, I'm going to use 4 little pieces or little strips here of my E6000. And then I'll take my Gorilla Glue and my glue gun, and I will go around in between. That's just going to give that other glue a chance to set up. And that's what I want it to do. So we can keep on moving here. I'm going to try to get it as centered as possible, and this is what it's going to look like so far without the candle. Now, if you go back and look, I can see lots of that bright green color. I don't like that. That does not look woody or natural to me. So I'm just going to pluck apart a couple of the little stems I have left, and I'll just go over here and there what I want to cover. Kind of filling in the blank spots. Now my candle will be way too deep in there unless I gave it a bit of a rise. So with just a little bit of hot glue, I'm going to go on the inside and make a little bit of a booster seat for my candle. I'm going to put it in the middle, and now you can see I put it in the middle, but I had to get it in front of me. Here's that beautiful flickering candle, and this is what it's going to look like. I'll show you in the end, you'll get a better look. The next is going to be a mushroom log light. I have been waiting for months to do this one. So I've got this piece of chola, and I got it from the thrift store. I've got a green and a brown chalk paint, chippy brushes, and these are little lights that I got from Temu. No, the video is not sponsored, but I love the lights, and I knew what I wanted to do with this. Got matte Mod Podge as well. I'm going to take a finger protector and put it right over my little USB thing so that I don't get any paint or any type of anything on it that might cause a fire. I started off by just adding a little bit of that matte Mod Podge all over the top, thinking that would be enough to bring that plasticky shine down, but it was not. So what you won't see me do is repaint each one of those with the red and cream and put the dots back on it. Nobody wants to see that, right? Y'all saw me do that on the big mushroom. So I'm going to take a little bit of a dark brown paint. This is just regular acrylic paint, and I'm gonna cover up the oranginess in here because, you know, this is not a fall project. This is something we want out all year. So I'm gonna take that orange out. Now, I understand that chola wood is used a lot in little reptile cages. So if you find your pieces thrifted, be sure that you clean them thoroughly so that you are not getting any little germies anywhere in your house. I'm going to dry this, you know, fairly quickly here. And this is what it'll look like. Really took that orange down. Now that I have that flatter look, I'm going to take a little bit of the brown that I showed you and a little bit of the green. And we'll start with the brown. Dry this between layers. And I'm just going to start dotting this on here, giving it a little bit of an aged look, and then I will brush it on a little bit too. This is just going to make that wood look a little more aged and realistic. Well, in my opinion. I don't know. Chola wood might not actually have the same aged look, but in my house, it's going to. You know what I'm saying? It's going to. All right, so I'm just going to brush what's left in that brush onto the wood. You can see there's lighter and darker spots. We're going to let it dry. Then I'm going to go into that green. I'm going to pat most of that off too and just go over the top. Now, this gives it a little bit of a mossy look when you put it on. And it gives it an aged look. I've shown you walks around my yard so you know what old wood looks like, right? There's a variety of stuff on it. Then I'm going to dry it thoroughly. You can use a hair dryer or you can use a little fan that you set up to dry things. Just be sure you're in a ventilated area. Be on the safe side. We don't want any breathing or respiratory problems. Look at it once it is all dry. I love that. Everything's going to blend so nicely. And you see all those holes in there? That's going to make it very convenient for what we're doing next. So here's that string of lights. I have popped off all the little mushrooms where I painted them. And we are going to feed that string of lights right through the inside. Just wanted to show you what they look like. I'll start, obviously, in an easy spot in the bottom. Push the very first one through that spot. And then I can snap that mushroom right back on. Once I get it on, I can use some of my Gorilla Glue to hold it in place. And I'm going around the plastic. There's like a little silicone seal that holds the wire in place. And then I'm going to put a little bit of that glue right there on the chola. and put the mushroom in at a slant because this is going to be a hanging project. I'm going to turn the lights off for a little bit, and we're going to have this just hanging upright and appearing as though the mushrooms are going upwards. You know what I mean? Yeah, you'll see. If you don't understand what I'm saying, you will see as we put these on. So I'm going to take another one. This was easy to get to. Now, once you get to the point where you're not able to use your fingers to reach into the piece of cholla, you can use a stick, or there's another way to do it too, and I'll show you that shortly. If the stick works, perfect. I'm going to go from side to side and in the front and just here and there until I get all of my little mushrooms on that log. Takes a minute for it to dry, so just take your time. Now I'm using, this is like almost like a popsicle, not a popsicle stick, a sucker, like a lollipop stick, right? I'm going to add a little bit of hot glue, and on the sides of the lights, there's a flat spot. I'm going to put that right on that flat spot and let it dry for just a minute. And then I can use that stick to direct the light right into whichever hole I choose. Then a little twist of the stick, it comes right off, and it's exactly where it needs to be. Oh, I hope this tip helps y'all, because once I figured this out, game changer. I was so much happier. I've told y'all before I got little hands. Yep, little hands, big problems. Continue along here, doing the same process. A little bit of glue on the end of that stick. Put it on the flat part of the little light. And then I can just feed it up through the wire and into whichever slot I want the mushroom to go in. Put the mushroom back on. A little glue on the mushroom bottom, a little glue on the cholla, and you can actually go all around the outside and hold it in place. Love it! I have plenty of cord in the back to be able to hang it up. Wonderful. So let's disguise the cord. I'm gonna just make a little bit bigger of an opening on the top hole. I'm gonna put the cord through it, just gonna feed it through there, and it will be hidden on the back and you won't be able to see it. I'm going to take a little piece of ribbon doubled over that is going to fit probably 2/3 of the way down. I want some of this to be loose so I can plug it in. I'm going to get my glue and just go back and forth on the cholla across that line. And then I can add down my ribbon. That's going to protect the wall, and it is also going to cover that up, just in case you were to peek from the side. Be sure that you get the edges glued down also, so it's nice and neat. Now we need something to disguise the wires, because you can see that right through the cholla. So if you want to use loose moss, you can. It's going to be a little messier. Spanish moss is perfect because it's long and stringy. So right in here, we can tuck it in here and right in here, so that you don't see those lines. So pushing it inward and pressing downward on the wires so that they go to the bottom, you can cover up most of that. And you can also take a little bit and go through the holes in the front if you need to. You could certainly do this with a log that's got holes in it if you wanted to. You know, you don't have to use as many mushrooms as I use. Just, this is for inspiration, right? All my videos are inspiration only. If you have the things to copy it to the T, then perfect. But if you don't, don't feel like you have to, right? I'm just going to push it in there till I know I have enough to cover up. I can't see any of that silver wire poking down. I love the look of that. Now, because I love moss so much, we're going to go around each of these little mushrooms with some of that scrap moss. Now, this is the moss I was telling you about. It has brown moss, green moss, reindeer moss. Protect your fingers. I save all that moss, and they work. It's perfect for little pieces like this, because I'm going to need little bits. I'm going to pinch it up in my fingers and just press it into the glue. You can shake off or use your glue gun to kind of loosen up any extra so that it's not falling all over your decor. Obviously, you don't want that to happen. So be sure in the end that you do that. I'm going to go around each one of these, and you can see what I'm doing here. Very important that you protect your fingers in this, because it's a lot of glue and the moss can be kind of thin and the glue is very hot. Very hot. I love this. It looks like the little mushrooms have found just the perfect home in this piece of wood. Now, you could also use Spanish moss here if you didn't want to mix your mosses, but let me tell you, if you live in the woods, then you know there's mixed moss everywhere. We don't discriminate in our woods. We like all the mosses. All of them are beautiful. Yes, yes, I love it. Y'all, what's the weather like today at your house? It is 42 degrees with light rain here. I live in southern Alabama, almost on the coast, not very far at all from the coast. And I'm glad to have some rainy weather and rainy, cool weather because we don't normally get it. So I enjoy it when it happens. Editing videos and running over my tax information and washing the clothes. That's my life, y'all. That's what I do. Because my kids are at school. They're back at school after Christmas break. Yay! Okay, so this is what it is going to look like. And of course, you'll get a better look at this in the end. When I show you the final look of everything, you'll get to see it all lit up. I'm gonna make a little hanger for it so we can hang it on the wall. It's just a little piece of this twine, and I've just made a little knot. I'm gonna go right in the back here, in the same little spot where we added that wire, and it won't slip through. The knot will not slip through there. So I'm gonna add some hot glue and give that a chance to dry, and we will have the perfect hanger. Just tuck a little moss in there. Perfect. Next is a bird nest basket. All right, so I've got some of these foam rings. I've got 2 more of the birds, and they're in 2 different positions. And see, one of them's kind of looking down. This beautiful thrifted basket that I have had for probably 5 years, and I have been looking for the perfect project, and I think I found it. These happen to fit perfectly in the basket. That's why I'm using these. I've just put one on top of the other one, and I'm pressing them down to they're tightly in the bottom rather than gluing them together, because this is the wet moss that actually is very flaky, and the glue just balls up on it essentially. I'm going to make pins for it. I'm just going to use some of my greenery picks that I have cut into pieces. I measured against the side of the basket, and I'm going to use 4 of those to make little pins to hold these 2 pieces together, because the top one is loose, but the other one is snugly in the bottom. And I'll show you that this does work fine for what my purposes are. Then I'm going to add another one here, and then one more here, just kind of in a square shape or a diamond shape, depending on your perspective. And you can see that it won't fall out, so that's perfect. Here's some more of that moss. It's like a preserved moss that I had picked up. And I'm just going to put it here almost like puzzle pieces, see which pieces fit, and I'm going to lay them down with a little bit of hot glue. Now, if I press it really hard into there, it will actually cling, which I love. But you could also use pins to put yours down. If you're using something thin, you can do that. Also, I'm packing this in there all the way to the edge where those sticks are, and that's going to help it stay in place. All right, so puzzle pieces, right? Now, you can see the bottom of this bird here has a hole in it, which is perfect. I'm going to make a little stand to go on the top of here for this bird. And all I'm doing, I know I'm a little bit blurry, is twisting this around. One piece will stick up to go into the bird, and the other piece will just be wound around. I've got a little bird nest here for the bottom bird. It was actually like an Easter thing. It had like a bird and some Easter eggs. I took all that out, and I'm going to repurpose for this. I'm going to glue it down a little bit, and then I'm going to make some pins, almost like floral pins, to place these down kind of at a slant so they go into the moss underneath and into the foam rings that are underneath to hold it in place, just in case the glue doesn't hold it. Okay, this is causing more stability in the entire project, right? More pinning of everything together. Now, the Spanish moss that I'm adding here is going to fit into this little viney wreath without needing any glue at all. So I'm just going to spare myself the time and not glue it. Nice. Let's put some glue on her or him. Usually it's the colored birds that are the ones that are male. Whichever one. Then I'm going to add a little bit of hot glue, and we're going to mix the mosses. Because, you know, bird's nest, they use a little bit of whatever they can scavenge. I'll take some of these pieces of, I think these were, yes, those were from the thrift store. And I'm going to add it in. In fact, I had cut some pieces out of this one, but I'm going to fix it. I'll come back into focus in just a moment, y'all. But at least you can see what I did on top. I went over where I twisted it and tucked that moss all the way around the top where the other bird's going to go. I've got some more pieces of scrap fern that I'm adding down here on the bottom. I promise I'll come back into focus. Don't give up on me yet. I'm going to bend some of those pieces of fern downward. I just like to go outside of the frame almost. Like you think outside of the box and I go outside of the frame. I like to add things hanging down, like little tendrils hanging down, little feathery pieces. You can see here to the middle of that fern, I've added a different type of fern that I had that's hanging over the side. You can see how beautiful and lush that looks. Every day I could look at this bird. Every day, no matter what the season. Bend your pick, then you can bend your pieces down. Add a little bit. And it's just continuing that fern down the side of that beautiful, oh, I love that. I love that so much. Now we're going to add some to the top because the little bird up top wants a little bit of fern on his nest. And I'm just going to press that little piece of wire into the wire that I twisted on the top. And we're going to make him a little tiny nest, a little mini nest, if you will. And I'm going to glue it on to the handle of the basket. And I'm also going to add some moss onto that. We really want to disguise any area where we have put the pieces together because we want it to appear as though it's just floating above it almost, you know? So we're going to put that over one piece of the fern. I'm going to leave 2 pieces of the fern down, just like that. Then I'm going to take that hot glue and hold it there in place until it is dry. I'll add some hot glue inside of that hole. And then I'm going to go on the outside. I will put that piece of wire right into the bird and press him onto the nest, hold him in place until it is dry. So then if you want to add any more pieces of greenery, anything with interest, I thought this little piece would be nice. It's just a little bit different, you know, just a little different. I'm going to add that right by the stem, just in 2 pieces, one a little taller than the other. And this will be asymmetric. The next is going to be our mighty growing pine. Now y'all, this one was inspired by something I saw in my own yard. So this little piece of wood looking stuff is actually resin. Then I have a pine cone and I have a little pick plus some moss. Now this little plastic piece probably was in an aquarium. I would think this is like a fish tank sort of thing. But I found it at the thrift store and I had already painted it for another project and then never did the project. So what I did was dry brush the shiny plastic with some brown, let it dry, and then dry brushed it with a little gray. All right? So we're going to have this pine cone growing out of this tree stump. I had one in my yard doing this. So pretty. I mean, life will come out of anything, right? So many lessons we could learn from nature. So many. That's why I encourage you to get outside and walk around and just breathe the air and listen to the birds. And you know, when the weather's decent, put your bare feet in the sand, you know, or the dirt. Just get out there and just be part of this beautiful world that God made for us, you know. Okay, so we're making a little ring here. And I'm going to take this little pine cone and I'm going to press it down. Now, the whole pine cone's not going to be underneath, but part of it will. I'm going to take some hot glue, go between the little pieces of the pine cone. And I'm going to make sure that it is sticking firmly down into that moss as if moss is like the soil or whatever that would be around it, you know, like it's growing out of that. I'm going to put a little more so that it has a nice transition between the log and that beautiful little pine cone. And tap off the little extras. All right, I'm going to add some over here too. And then I'm just going to be adding moss here and there all the way around because you know me, I can't just leave well enough alone. It's got to be better than well, right? So now you can see that it is nested in that moss, right? I chose this piece of greenery because it has these little pieces that look like pine branches. Well, in order to make this look like a baby pine, we need to thin the bottom down a little bit. And it's going to be actually looking like a little baby pine tree. I'm just using my scissors and cutting this at a slant upward so that the bottom branches or the bottom little pieces of that fringe are shorter than what is growing on top. And then it will sit right in the top of that pine tree because a baby pine tree will be growing right out of the top of the cone. So I'm using a little bit of it's like a utility knife to kind of drill in a little bit of a hole so that I can sit the glue in it and then set the bottom of the stand in it. Look, it looks like a little tree growing from the tree. I love it. That is precious. That does my heart so good. I'm adding in a little bit of moss on the inside because, you know, we got to make the rest of this log look beautiful, right? And I'll add another pine cone because it's fallen out of the tree somewhere nearby, or maybe a squirrel tucked it in there for later. Who knows? But Bob Ross is coming out, y'all. He's coming out. Then I'm going to take some more pieces of pine because we don't know what else might be growing in there. And I'm just going to add this coming right out the side. Yep, works for me. I want the inside of this log to also be pretty because I want there to be some interest. If somebody were to pick this up and look at it, I want this to almost be like one of those little peekaboo projects where you can see something from all of the angles. Let's add some moss because the tree needs something to be growing from, right? It needs some nutrients. See, even on the inside, it's looking good. I love this. So I'm going to continue along and I'm going to tuck a little moss here and there. There's a seam right there, which is so awkward, and I wanted to cover it, so I'm just going to patch it on there. It's a little clump of reindeer moss that was in my scraps. And then in the little cracks and crevices, I'm going to go in and add some more of this little scrap moss. Just tuck it here and there. There are a lot of different shapes and cracks and depressions and raised areas all over logs and trees. They're very interesting if you ever just take the time to just look at a tree. They're very, very interesting. Stuff is growing out of them. Animals live in them. I don't know. Maybe I'm a bit of a tree hugger. I do love trees very much. All right, so I'm just going to go along, like I said, in any little hidden area. I'm looking at it from all areas, and I'm going to add a little bit here and there. Now, of course, you're welcome to stop on your project anywhere you like. If you have a hollowed out piece of wood that's not plastic like mine, you can use it to do this. You definitely could. And if you wanted to use acorns, and you know, you could do this for an oak tree if you wanted. Mine just happens to be pine because I wanted to use the beautiful little pine cone. Now look at that. I love this. I love this very much. What a great school project this would be too. So 10 all new projects for you today. 10. Look at all of these pieces. Now, any one of these would look absolutely beautiful in your home year-round. If you enjoy a woodland look, a rustic look, a natural look, forest core, maybe even fairy core because of the mushrooms, these would fit wonderfully in your home. There's our little piece over there. I just propped it up because I didn't have a place to hang it on my display. I just propped it up, but it's all lit up. If you enjoyed these projects, I would love it if you could give me a thumbs up because it helps my channel and it helps me to know the type of material that you're enjoying so that I can create more of what it is that you love. Of course, we're always going to do it on a budget on this channel, and we're going to do it at a fraction of the cost while looking unique and saving yourself some money and time. I would love it if you could subscribe to my channel if you enjoy this type of decor and what we're all about over here. I encourage you to never stop trying. Always do your best, and let your best be judged by you, not anybody else, right? You find joy in the way that you do things and the things that you bring into your home and what you create. You live there. It should be about what you love. It's a new year. It's 2024, and I am hoping to get out more projects for y'all that are not specific to any season. I would love to hear your input on the kind of things that you would like to see, maybe even this spring. I want to say thank you to the members of the channel who make all of this possible. All of that extra money from their memberships goes to helping me buy supplies so that I could bring you free videos and inspiration and ideas on how to make your own home lovely and joyful. Thanks for stopping by today. I appreciate you very much. I am happy to have each and every one of you here. I'd love to chat with you in the comments. And I'll see you again very soon. Bye.